God, Mum, you're not on Tinder.
Most people call it plenty of fuck.
We're going to make you a profile.
The Playing with Matches podcast, where women talk about their experiences dating online. Hello, and welcome to the Playing with Matches podcast. I am Mark. Today we are on episode 20, and in traditional English language, the number 20 is called a score. And I have scored today in many ways because we have a guest with us who you would have heard from last week's episode, who also happens to be my, what do we think, Jen? Partner, girlfriend, lover, what are we going to say?
All of the above.
Okay. How did you find last week? What was that like?
Well, it was a real honour, mostly because I'm a huge fan. I think this is a wonderful podcast and I might be biased, but that's what I believe. A little bit nerve-wracking to begin with, but I have to say that you beautifully directed me through it. But mostly it was just lovely to share my story with you. And actually, in many ways, share the story that really connected the two of us when we first met in terms of this amazing thing that you're doing and being a part of that and exploring that. So yeah, it was just a real honour. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Today is a special episode. And the reason that Jen is here is because it is our couples edition. So of all the interviews that we did during the second lockdown for this podcast, one of the interviews was with a couple, Georgia Lee and Craig. And so we're going to play their interview today. The reason we interviewed them as a couple and no one else is because Georgia Lee specifically said that she wanted Craig to be a part of it because her dating online story was him. And so we'll hear from them in a moment. But first of all, let's start with some, as has become tradition on this podcast, some facts about the number 20. So Jen, would you like to start us off?
Well, Mark and listener, did you know...
Listener, singular. Listener. Well, thank you.
Possibly just me listening at the moment. But so in the county of Lincolnshire, UK, lies the hamlet of 20. Now, a hamlet is defined as being a small human settlement, and 20 is so small that there is no official record of how many people live there. But I hope it's 20. I don't know about you.
Exactly 20, yeah. And then if somebody moves out, then somebody else has to move in, so it's always 20.
That's it, yeah.
But what happens if a child is born in 20 and it makes it 21? What do they do? Do they have to kick someone out?
Yes.
Wow. And how are we going to decide this?
Or maybe there is a birth cap.
A birth cap?
Yes.
Have you ever used a birth cap, Jen?
I said I would not discuss that on this podcast.
Sorry. A birth cap, right.
A birth cap, yes. Would you like my second fact? If somebody has 20/20 vision, it means that they have perfect eyesight. I never quite understood, by the way, why we call it eyesight, because it's not finger sight or toe sight. It's very clearly eyesight. So surely sight suffices. Maybe I'm being pedantic there.
Yeah, just why not sight? Yeah, we don't call it finger touch. Is that what you mean? We just call it touch.
Yes. If someone has 20/20 vision, it means that they have perfect eyesight. And the idea behind this is if you can read a specific set of letters on a chart at a distance of 20 feet, then your vision couldn't get any better. Although the metric equivalent of this would be 6'6", with perfect vision at 6 metres, but most countries that use the metric system still refer to it as 20/20. A 20th wedding anniversary is referred to as a China anniversary. So it's traditional to give your spouse a gift made of China. Do you think anybody's ever misinterpreted that and gifted something made in China?
I bet they have. Or at least use that as a get out. I couldn't find anything made from China, so I got you something made in China. Yeah. So there we go. Thank you for those facts, Jen. That was lovely. I think we've all learned something here. Jen and I are going to chat a little bit later about how we met, our little online dating story. But as a kicking off point, we're going to start with the story of Georgia Lee and Craig. And as I alluded to at the beginning, Georgia Lee wanted to be interviewed with Craig because he kind of is her online dating story. Although I did insist that we started off with just Georgia Lee. And for those of you that were listening last week, you will know that we ended Jen's interview on a cliffhanger. And we will get to the conclusion to that story in part 2 as well.
So we'll be back at the end for pork pies and bagels. Until then, take it away, Georgia and Craig.
My name's Georgia. I am 28.
I'm 27. Can I start again? I'll start again. My name's Georgia and I'm 28 and I grew up in Southwick, just outside of Brighton. An amazing upbringing with my mum and dad and my sister Leah. I went to a good school. We had good fun. I still see my school friends now. We used to go around not terrorising, but go around Brighton. I originally went on Plenty of Fish. That was just a disaster. I think my first message on Plenty of Fish was, "Wow, you're next long." I'm like, great, well, this is a nice dating site. So I came straight off that, and I just met, quite frankly, I just didn't like the people that was on there. I didn't like their vibe. So I was sitting with my friends Jen and Brad, and I was just like, I want to meet a man, and I want to meet, one for the rest of my life. You just have that downer. And she's like, you have to go on Tinder. And our other half was going, no, don't go on that. And when he left the room, she was like, we're going to make you a profile. So he sat there, and I was like, I haven't got any nice photos. I'm not the girly girl. I was sitting doing a selfie. So my first pictures that were on there was me in a Pringles hat, middle fingers up, and things that showed my character. And they weren't some nice photos, but some silly photos to show that I weren't just this serious person. I did have I could make someone smile and laugh, and I think that's what caught Craig's eye, because I just wasn't serious at all, and I'm still not now. So we went on Tinder. Do you know what? When I was on my Tinder dates, I think we knew there and then. Again, friendship, we got on really well. Sometimes I've actually sent them in the street and gone, hello, you're right. And they're with their girlfriend and child, and I'm with my boyfriend and, no child at the time. But it just goes to show how much of a level that was just that no friendship. I think because me and Craig had so much in common, we got on to that next level. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. But with everyone else, it was like, oh, well, I don't really like doing that, or oh, that's funny, or it was just it just never went to that second or third date. It was, I think one took me to eat pork pies, which was really quite weird, but they were the best pork pies I've ever eaten. He was like, oh, do you like pork pies? The free Jolly Butchers in Brighton. Apparently they do the best pork pies, and he took me there, and I was like, this is really cool, but not what I expected at all. You do get some weird and wonderful messages from people, but Craig's was the most tame. Hi, how are you? And I was like, okay, we're going somewhere here. And this was when, I was at home cleaning my car. And this, no, actually, that's a lie. I got a message from him. I opened it and was like, he's all right. So I left it. I then went back to my mum and dad's, and I started cleaning my car. I was like, oh, this is so boring. I hate cleaning my car. If you ask my parents, I am just the worst. My room is messy. My car's messy. I'm just a messy person. And I was like, I'll just check again. So I looked, and there was one photo that caught my eye. I don't know why. He's in Thorpe Park kissing a minion side on. I don't know why it caught, and I was like, oh, he looks all right. And the best thing about Tinder is that it said if you have mutual friends and interests, well, he had the weirdest mutual friends, but they were nice. Where some people that I'd matched up with, I'll go, oh, that person, oh, they're really horrible. So it made me not want to go near them, really. So, and then Craig liked a lot of the same clubs as me. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe, we've been to the same place. So he literally just wrote, hello, you okay? And I thought, oh, all right then. So I put, yeah, you? Well, back at you. With the boring startups. And then he wrote back straight away and was like, oh yeah, what are you doing? And I was like, well, actually I'm all cleaning my car. And I used to have the messages saved, but they're totally gone from my phone. But it used to be really funny reading back and being like, God, how boring was that start? But yeah, so I was like, oh, what are you doing? And it was just that's when it started snowballing, really. What do you do for work? What music are you into? That's when we started sending each other music. And that's when we started to get to know each other, really. And then, that's when I met him and got in his car, which, looking back, I should have never have done that, but I'm glad I did. I remember when we got out of the car, and he always goes, oh, stop saying this story, but I'll tell you. When we got out of the car, when we drove down to Brighton seafront, the minute he got out of his car and started walking, I felt so sick and I wanted to go, I love you. It was like, I wanted to say it. And I still remember it. You know, when you get that like that real gut wrenching, feel sick feeling. I had that the moment I saw him. And I was stand by that. Yeah, that is exactly what happened. The moment I saw him, I was like, oh, I love you. And I'm still here. We're still together. So yeah. And then we got a little 7-month-old boy. 9 days after lockdown, he came. You know, it's been difficult, but we are getting there. And he is just the apple of like, oh, we love him so much. And he looks just like his dad.
So yeah, basically I thought I'd just start up on online dating, basically just with Tinder at the time, because at the time that was like the one to be on. Basically, that was the one everyone was talking about. So I basically got on there, and it was really just for a bit of fun as well, to be honest. Like, if something ever came of it, then it was a bonus. But yeah, basically I was on there for quite a few years before. I had a few different dates and things like that, and nothing ever came of anything though.
Which I'm glad.
And then and then I remember I was on it one evening. I was with my friend at the time. Actually, it was my friend called Tom. We'd just gone for a drive somewhere, and I remember we were sat in a car park, and I think it was outside of a pub or something. And I sort of was flicking left and flicking right, and then came across obviously at Georgia, and I thought, oh, you know, she looks nice, she looks genuine, and you know, not. So I thought I'll see what happens. So and then I think weeks, probably it was days went by before I actually got a reply from her, and I remember actually saying, my mate said to me, he said, did you ever hear back from that girl? I said, oh, funny you say. I said, she's literally like messaged me. It took her about 3 days to do it, but yeah, she's finally messaged me. And yeah, we just sort of hit it off from there, really. I was really blunt, to be fair. I was just like, you know, hey, how are you?
That was it.
Literally,
hi, how are you?
Literally. The effort wasn't, so you're probably thinking, he hasn't put a lot of effort in, but yeah, it was.
It's better than some messages that I got off that Tinder, to be fair. So I thought it was quite nice after that, really.
Basically, we just sort of hit it off from there, really. I remember I was quite excited, and I was like, you know, I've got a good feeling about this. And it was like we'd sort of known each other for years, kind of thing. We just sort of got chatting, and it was just constant, really.
Like paragraphs, it wasn't just one-liners, and it was, you know, it wasn't like all day. You know, we had work, and you know, when we were talking to each other, it was, you got excited about what he was going to reply next, because we had just so much in common, like the same, like we liked house music, like that was, you know, becoming quite a big thing. Yeah, I mean, it's always been there, but it was quite a big thing. But
music
we were sending each other music, and that's quite a big part of both of our lives. So yeah, well, I think we bonded really over music as well. That was quite big. Yeah,
that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Nights out.
I remember chatting, and I was at work one day, and we were chatting. I was actually in Hove working, and she said, "Oh, I'm only at the Bagel Man," and I was like, "The Bagel Man?" She was like, "You've never heard of the Bagel Man?" I was like, "I've never been." No, she was like, "Well," she couldn't believe it.
Get yourself down here and get yourself a Bagel Man.
So yeah, so I ended up coming out of and getting a bagel, basically. That wasn't actually the very first time. But the first time we met, I was actually with a friend of mine at the time, and we came through to Brighton just for something to do, really. I think we were going out somewhere, me and my mate, and I just said, like, if you're around and you want to like hook up, then like, you know, let me know. Georgia was like, yeah, if you're coming through, you know, let me know. So I did. And then she come and met me and my friend, which was quite funny. It was just unusual.
I got in his car. That was the first time I was like, that's him. And he was going, that's her. So I got in the car and I was like, hi. Yeah. Thinking about back at that moment now, if my son or my child ever got in a car and didn't even know the person, that they'll get, it makes you think, why did I do that? But I felt such that connection with him that I actually just got in the car and was like, "Oh, you're right." And then we drove off.
I think we went we went to Brighton Pier.
Brighton Pier, didn't we?
Yeah, so we actually went
a few bars and stuff.
Tom, my friend, was there as well. Yeah,
it just felt natural to get in the car, and I was just afterwards. I was like, "Why did I do that?" They really could have been anyone, and I got in the car with them. But it did. It just felt so natural. You know, I felt like I knew them. I love Tom, but he was cynical of our
it's funny, yeah, it's
meeting.
Funny,
But it was good.
When I think back, it's quite funny. But then it actually made me sort of like her even more, to be fair, because like for her to be able to meet up with one of my friends, which to me is quite a big deal, because I'm close with all my mates and that at the time I was going out. I like socialising. I was going out all the time. And that was a big part of my life as well. So for Georgia to come along and to get on with everybody else straight away was quite a big thing for me.
He came twice on the first 2 times we met. So yeah. I don't know if you were just scared or...
No, I don't know.
He was just there.
I don't know really why.
He was really nice. So when we actually became just one-on-one, I was actually quite nervous because there wasn't that person in the middle. It was just me and Craig, and it was the best day. It was just a typical let's go bowling and to the Master Mariner and the marina. Yeah, we just had such a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was just,
and that's still now our favourite pub to go to. And it was just like, we came here on like our 3rd date, and now look at us. We started WhatsApping each other. We took each other's number.
Yeah,
got each other on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we got each other on the socials and things like that, and then yeah, we I think we have a few phone calls. I think we did a couple of phone calls, but we met each other quite from the point of actually like starting to talk to each other to actually meeting each other. I don't think it was actually that long, was it?
No,
it was
about
quite quick.
Probably quite a week.
Yeah, so we'd only been chatting like a week, and then we actually met up.
I know that the second day you were like, come to New Haven because you've never been here before. So I was like, okay. So I was going around and I met them in Sainsbury's car park, at the back of Sainsbury's car park. And Tom drove this time, not Craig. And he then you basically took me on a tour of New Haven.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And we went up this top. Yeah. But I remember sitting in the back and I immediately deleted all my online dating platforms.
I think there's another funny bit to that actually, because when we went up, it was on the cliffs in New Haven, just to show her the view and stuff. Not that it was great at all, but we went up and then I
was basically third wheeling with Craig and Tom. So,
and I actually remember we were talking about a Tinder at the time, and I said to her at the time, "So are you still on there? You know what's going on there?" And I said, I bet it's easy for a girl to get loads of likes and matches. He was like, well, yeah, like, you know, I suppose probably easier than a guy maybe. And I was like, well, just like loads. And I remember telling her to like just scroll through and just like, and it was like
match.
And I was quite, well, not surprised. I kind of knew it was probably going to be like that, but from my point of view, from a guy doing it didn't happen to me like that. If I'd have just liked it, obviously I would have never have got nowhere near as many. So that was quite funny. Really. I think for a guy, if they look like sort of half decent, got a nice figure and blah blah blah, you just sort of, you don't even really delve into it very much. You just go, yeah, like
my profile.
But it seems like it's quite true though. I think it's funny.
But the weirdest thing is that 3 months actually after getting together, bearing in mind his dad tagged me and him on Facebook, and he was like, "Oh, just been out for a carvery with Craig and his new girlfriend." I went, "Your dad just called me your girlfriend." He was like, "Oh, will you?" And then that was him asking me out, basically. So such an affectionate person. The best thing is 3 months after becoming together, I thought, well, you haven't met many of my friends. So I thought, right, we'll show each other's pictures on each other's phones and just so, right, oh, that's Ryan, or, this is my friend, Becky. And I said, oh, this was a funny night in a club, and we saw a group and we basically just photobombed their photo. And he went, hold on a minute, look in the left-hand corner, and he's there, and there's me in the background. And this was about 4 months before we'd even gone onto Tinder.
Yeah.
That was in coalition, wasn't it?
Yeah, so like,
it's like, that was quite weird how we'd actually met or in the same photo before even going on the platform. That was quite cool.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a good one. I couldn't believe it. It's so funny.
Young.
Yeah.
I just look like old me in the back.
I had hair and no facial hair.
Yeah. That was quite weird, and that's when we thought, oh, okay.
I mean, I thought it's quite surprising, really, that I'd never sort of come across or recognised before, because a lot of people that I'd become friends with at the time,
we actually know a lot of mutual friends
that I've met out clubbing and things like that. So,
and even people still now were like, I was like, how do you know them? And he was like, oh, I used to go clubbing with them, but I've then grown up with them for years, or I went to the same school, so that's quite weird.
Yeah,
because we've never bumped into each other, unless we have, and I just haven't. We got together in May, and we first met in March of that year.
Yeah,
and I think it'd only been out probably half a year.
Well, as far as
it was just when it just sort of went, oh, have you got a Tinder profile?
I mean, it might have been out for a while, but it was just sort of becoming about then, and it was like the one to go on, if you know what I mean. And then all of a sudden, loads more sprung up, didn't they? It was literally just a little paragraph about yourself. Like, I think you got about 4 pictures, and then it was literally just left and right. But then I've talked to people now that have been using it, and there's all sorts of things on there, super likes, and people are paying to like people and stuff like that. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, none of that was on there when I was on there.
Would you have ever paid for me, super like?
Yeah, of course so.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
You probably would have asked his dad for the money or something.
Yeah, that's payday.
Yeah.
After the 3rd date, I think Georgia actually messaged me and actually said, I'm really starting to like you now.
I really like him.
Yeah, it's basically, I hope you're feeling the same way, basically. And I obviously just ripped back and said, yeah, I'm starting to like you as well. I'm excited for seeing where it goes. I think we've got something good going, basically, and it just sort of blossomed from there, really.
Yeah.
That was after the 3rd date, and then then we just sort of kept, because at the time Georgia was actually living. She was like lodging at 2 of her friends, so I then became friendly with them. And I ended up meeting up with Georgia, various times. She actually came out with me and all my friends on her own. Can't actually remember when was that. That was quite soon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we ended up going clubbing. I was going out for the night, and I said, "Do you and your friends want to come?"
I turned it on my own, little Todd.
Yeah, she was going to come with somebody that I think maybe might have let her down or couldn't go or something. So she came anyway, and my mates were like, "She's going to come on her own," and I was like, "Yeah, she's going." On her own.
He loved a night out. I'm not going to miss one.
So yeah,
it was a chance to then meet his friends as well, and because we're such social butterflies,
I think some of my friends.
It wasn't a problem to me to meet your friends because I've already met one twice, and if he was all right, I'm sure the rest of them were all right. So yeah, it was such a good night, and the photos still come up now, and we're like, oh, I'm like,
yeah, we've got some funny photos from from that night. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was really good, and it just just grew and grew and grew from there, really, didn't it?
And he still can't get rid of me. So.
So we was at Georgia's. It was Brad and Jen, which Georgia was actually renting a room off at the time, in Kemp Town in Brighton. And then, so I was actually staying there for quite a few nights. And we obviously, as a 4, we became quite friendly at the time, doing loads of stuff together, and doing loads of festivals and stuff at the time. And then Georgia actually
wanted to move in to save money, so then we could get our own place.
Yeah, she moved back home. So then I obviously stayed at Georgia's parents' house.
We've done a lot to and fro in.
I met Georgia's parents. I mean, when did I meet them? That was probably
not long after we met.
No, yeah, it's probably a couple of months, maybe month.
Yeah.
probably a month or two, I probably met Georgia's parents. Yeah, that was interesting. That was good fun.
My parents are very dry and sarcastic. So my dad has this thing when someone new or, a new friend comes round, or maybe a boyfriend, he's like, just so you know, the vicar rang and he wants to know when organ practice is going. And because I start laughing, I'm like, Dad, no, please don't. It makes out that I'm either hiding something or so I was just like, please don't do your vicar joke, please. So he still did.
So he gave me a little interrogation on the way in, but nothing I wasn't expecting, to be fair. I wasn't really nervous though. Like, I'm not really one to really get too nervous about meeting people and stuff. I quite enjoy that, to be fair. And I knew we were getting on really well, and I guess it was just up to them whether they took to me or not, and we did, really, to be fair. Like, I just was comfortable, really comfortable around them.
So you did a lot of staying at mine.
Vice versa, really. And then, of course, Georgia moved back there, and then I saw them a lot more. And then I was living at home at the time as well. And then
so I used to go and stay around, like I traveled to New Haven to stay with Craig, and then he'll come and stay with me in Southwick. So yeah, but it's only recently that we've got our own place together, only renting.
Yeah, so
obviously with Albert.
At the time when I was living at home, and then my mum split up with her partner, and then
you've come and lived with me for a bit.
Basically, yeah,
that was really nice.
We had to leave, and then my mum was living with her mum for a bit, and then I was obviously living with Georgia. So at the time, I was really grateful for that, because Georgia's mum and dad basically took me under their wing, if you like, and I was living there for it was like nearly 2 years. Which was crazy, and then I ended up actually getting a place with my mum over in Seaford, which was like it all changed. I had a house in New Haven with my stepbrother, and we'd done it up. That was the plan. We was going to do it up and then rent it, but that all went pear-shaped when my mum split up with his dad, and yeah, so then I ended up getting a place with my mum in Seaford. And then basically Georgia would then come over to Seaford, and we were doing that for quite a few years, and then things changed again when we had a baby. So
yeah, we needed to get our own place. Then that was like the pinnacle. Let's get our own place.
Yeah, I mean we
because the to and fro just got too much.
We knew we wanted to anyway, but it was just a case of trying to save up a bit more. But then the baby came along.
Opportunity to get one of our friends really nice flats, so yeah, it's worked out. We're happy.
Yeah, it's good here. Yeah, it's nice to have right space, and now we're here. We're living. We've been here probably
since August.
Yeah, so we've not been here long at all. So it's it's one of my Tom.
It's actually Tom.
It's actually yeah. But yeah, so it's actually they got this place and they converted it. It was actually a big 6-bedroom townhouse, but they converted it into 2 apartments. We've got the maisonette, and then there's a guy below. But so yeah, it's quite cool, really.
It's so nice to have your own place.
It's my friend that we haven't got to worry about doing what we want to it, and we can make it our own and blah blah blah. But since we've been here, we've been happy, haven't we? Yeah. It's been good. It's been nice to have your own space and stuff, especially with the little one as well. To make things a little bit easier.
We do bounce off each other, don't we?
Yeah, it's always been like that though, really, from day one, to be honest.
We make really good friends, not just a couple. We actually make. Sometimes we go out, we act like a couple. And sometimes we go out, and people are like, "Are you friends?" Or
yeah, to be honest, I had a bit of a track record of that. To be fair, I always get in the friend zone. That was always happening to me. But with Georgia, it was a little bit different, obviously. And it turned out really good. So
it's nice to talk about it, because it's sort of making me
rekindles it a little bit.
Yeah, it's really nice actually. I think what it is with lockdown, it's obviously been hard on everyone. So because we are such social people, it's actually been quite hard, hasn't it?
Yeah, lockdown.
We love each other, but sometimes you do need to go and see some friends, and when you can't do that, there's only so much. You're currently leaning on our Monopoly board that we're going to play after this, so I think we've resorted to board games now, haven't we?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So that was Georgia Lee and Craig. Thank you so much to them. And the first question I have for you, Jen, is what do you think a Pringles hat is?
I am so glad you asked this, because this has been ruminating in my mind since Georgia said Pringles hat. And I have a few theories.
Okay.
It could be a hat of some description with the Pringles logo embroidered onto it.
Yep.
It could be a very long, tall, elongated hat.
Yes.
It could actually be a tin of Pringles, either the small one, which is probably more sort of head friendly actually, or the much longer one with some kind of string screwed into it and attached underneath as a sort of a chin strap.
See, I'd never thought of that. I'd assumed actually that it was a tall, thin hat and that it was called that just because of the shape of it. But then why would she be wearing that? And yeah, who knows? It could be a branding thing. I don't know. And I don't know why I didn't ask that at the time as well, because I was there. And ever since, and obviously I've edited it and I've listened to it a few times. And every time I hear it, I think, what is a Pringles hat?
Absolutely. We must talk about Tom.
Tom came twice. That's their words, not mine. Turned up for the first 2 dates. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. I really feel that Tom has been instrumental to the relationship. I'm eager to talk about Georgia Lee and Craig, by the way, at some point.
Yeah.
I do feel that he's been instrumental to their relationship. And
Well, they live in his old house, don't
they
they?
live in his old house. Do you think he's got that rigged up with cameras?
Wow. That just reminded me of a line in Talented Mr. Ripley. Tommy, how's the peeping? How's the peeping, Tommy?
Mark is looking at me from across a wooden long table as he says that, and it was quite unnerving, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You haven't seen that side of me before, have you? But that's usually because it's dark and I'm wearing dark clothing.
No, I have to say that, all jokes aside, I did think that was a very sweet story, actually.
They were absolutely charming in real life. Great sense of humour. You could see that they were in love, that they really cared about each other.
So I think that, they came across very well. Very, very sweet. I was really endeared to them. I think it's lovely that they've got little Albert now and that their relationship has progressed to that point where, isn't it amazing how, you're there with this little bundle of joy and it all goes back to this moment when two people swipe a certain way.
Yeah.
And how all these events can happen that can ultimately lead to bringing a new life into the world.
Absolutely.
I find that amazing. And I also, maybe I do believe in fate, but there were so many things there that Georgia Lee mentioned about Craig that made me think, I think this was destined. Most importantly, the bit that excited me the most was when they talked about the fact that they'd been in a picture before.
Yeah.
Before they'd known each other, in their younger years, but they were in the same picture together. And then the fact that when she first saw him, she just fell madly in love with him and got the rush of sort of, love nausea and butterflies. And there were just so many moments when it felt that she knew that he was the one, almost like he was destined to come into her life.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely way of looking at it. And the fact that they were in the same circle of friends to a certain extent, or the wider group. If we do believe in fate and destiny, even in the days before dating apps and dating programs, maybe somehow the universe would have brought them together anyway.
I think so.
Because they were floating in that sort of sphere anyway, weren't they, in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cute.
I think so. I also loved how it was Craig's dad who ultimately, made the first move, should we say.
Yeah, it seems like Craig had some help, didn't he?
I think so. I see Craig's dad and Tom as being his kind of little,
wingmen.
Cherubs sat flying on his shoulder.
Oh, his cupids.
His cupids, that's the one. Just shooting their love darts at Georgia Lee's direction.
Well, whoever sealed the deal for him, it looks like, and I really do hope, it was a couple of years ago that I interviewed them, but I really do hope that they are still happy and still enjoying, and little Albie will be sort of three or four now, probably.
Do you think Albert will ever listen to this episode?
I hope so. Certainly at least kind of, listen to their story of how they met. Yeah, I hope that will be made available to Albert at some point.
I think it was sweet too when they were saying that actually recounting the love that they have for each other and the way that they met and telling that story almost, I think the word that they used was rekindled some of that romance. I think that, you get caught up in life, and sometimes I think we can take our connections for granted, or certainly the stories of how we met people and connected with them. We can not forget, but it's not the focus of our mind. So when we are specifically recounting those memories and dedicating our time to retelling those, I think it does remind us of, this person, I love this person. It's the events that happened there was so special. So I thought that was really lovely too.
Yeah, I think it was lovely. As promised in part 1, what I would like to do now, or those of you who were listening last week will remember that Jen's interview ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. And the reason I cut it short was because she then went on to talk about how she and I met and got together. And I felt that would be more appropriate to play on this couples episode. So with that in mind, and without further ado, here it is.
After that fiasco, I think it was just around this time that the pandemic happened, or certainly when the lockdown restrictions were put into force. I really liked Tinder at that point, because even though I'd had a very weird experience, what I really liked about it was the fact that it was essentially people watching from the comfort of your own home without being able to actually be out in the world. Usually I might sit in a cafe with a book for a few hours and see who comes in and out, and maybe I look out over the street somewhere and, just see the world go by and people watch. But you can't do that during the pandemic. So Tinder actually served quite a good purpose. I should start by saying that, as you probably can tell, I like an older man, which isn't actually by design. I think that it's just so happened that I've been attracted to older men, which is interesting. I should add that my parents had me quite late, and I remember, I don't know if there's anything in this, but I remember learning a theory that if you have older parents at the point that you're born, then you're more likely to be attracted to older people, just because it's that familiarity aspect. So I don't know if it's got anything to do with that, but because I have formed relationships previously online traditionally, and haven't cared whether they're in the UK, the US, the UAE, doesn't matter to me. So I had my Tinder open to, I was 27, 28 when I joined it. I think my age range was 30 to about 60, I think. And then I didn't have a limitation on distance. And I was trawling through, as you do of an evening when you've got bugger else to do. And I saw this really interesting profile. And the first thing actually that attracted me to this profile was the picture. And there was a handful of them. And it was a man with shoulder length, curly dark hair, beautiful blue eyes, especially in picture number 3. I remember this vividly. I love a moustache and a goatee and these wonderful checkered shirts. And I thought, well, bloody hell, he's handsome. He looks really lovely. And then I read the profile and it said, not here for internet dating. I'm making a documentary about women's dating experiences online. Now, bearing in mind, I just had this bizarro, weird alien man hotel extravaganza. I thought that I have to tell someone this story. He's going to love this. So I swiped right, predominantly because I fancied him, but also because I thought he might actually be interested in my story. And I made the first move and I said, oh, hello, sounds fascinating. Tell me more about this documentary that you're making. And I got this exceptionally professional response back, which I guess to me confirmed that he really isn't here for dating. And there was a bit of to and fro and back and forth. And I said, I have a story I can tell you, how's it all going? And he told me a little bit around the concept of this documentary and the interviews and the conversations that he was having with women. And I said, I've got a story for you. So at that point he said, well, how about we take this off Tinder? And if you're happy to, if we move it onto WhatsApp, or, we can have a call and we can discuss your story in more detail. Great. I thought, brilliant. And then I think I said, and I don't know why I said this because it was very, very forthright, but I think I said, it's a shame actually that you're not here for dating, because I I can't remember it verbatim, but along the lines of, because you're very handsome, especially in photo number 3. I remember saying that. Anyway, we moved it onto WhatsApp and we had a really great formative conversation. And he said something really witty because I mentioned about the fact that I worked from home. And I think I'd said, so instead of a long commute, I now basically just walk to my desk in the bedroom. And I remember him saying, yes, the short commute to mental health problems or something like that, which made me laugh because it was very topical. It was really depressing working in that little bedroom. Anyway, we organised our first phone call and it was on his birthday. And I thought, great, I'm going to talk to this person for an hour or two. I'm going to tell him my story. I'm going to feature in this documentary. Brilliant. How interesting. Great. Fascinating. We had our first conversation. I think he called me about 10:30 at night, so it was quite late. And by 7 a.m, we were still on the phone. And by about midnight, I'd fallen head over heels in love, like desperately in love with this man whose voice was just, it was just so soothing and so sexy. And he was funny and he was witty, but he was also respectful and charming. And I had so many butterflies just talking to him. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what has happened? Because I was not anticipating any of this, but I really, really, really loved this man. And that first phone call culminated in being told a bedtime story that lasted maybe half an hour. And the premise of this bedtime story, well, it started about the purple man in the purple town, on the purple hill, in the purple castle, with the purple people, and there was a purple lady that didn't pay her purple taxes. And the punchline was that as they threw her in the river, they said indigo. And it was hilarious, but also really, really charming. And just fell madly in love for this person. And then the next night he said, what are you doing tonight? And I said, not much. What are you doing tonight? And he said, I'm reading you a bedtime story again. And then we had another phone call, which I think lasted probably the same amount of time. And that was nearly 4 years ago. And we've just had this beautiful relationship ever since. I feel that from the first time we spoke, it was almost fate. It was like it was meant to be. I wasn't looking for a relationship particularly. He wasn't looking for a relationship particularly, but something happened. There was a meeting of the minds and it was just fantastic. And it took a little while before we actually met because of the lockdown restrictions. And it was a bit of a gamble because he stayed with me one weekend, the first time we'd met in person. And because of the travelling limitations, it was such that if we hadn't liked each other, we would have been stuck together for a weekend. So, and it's quite, that's a compromising situation to be in. But it was phenomenal. It was everything I could have imagined it to have been and more. And 4 years later, we are still together. And of course, that is the man I'm sat opposite now, whose podcast this belongs to. And it's taken 4 years to actually tell him my story, which is where this all began. So there we go.
Well, thank you for that. It's a good job that this is an audio podcast and not a video, because I am bright red from those gushing things you said there. I'm not sure that I deserve them. But thank you. Just quickly, from my point of view, my age range, I just set mine to 10 years below and 10 years above. It somehow seemed fair, seemed right. And then I stopped looking for dates altogether because I became more interested in talking to women for the podcast. And I opened up my age range from 18 to 80, and the filter for location, I think I opened that up for worldwide as well, so that I could speak to all kinds of women. And I would usually wait for the woman to get in touch with me, because I'd said in my profile, message me if you're interested. That's when I would know that she was, and that she'd realised that she hadn't just swiped right and then sort of changed her mind. Because that's actually what happened with celebrity swipe right for me. And I thought, oh, that's because she wants to be interviewed. And then I think it was the next day or the day after she removed me. And so I guess what had actually happened was she saw that I was making the documentary. She thought, oh, no, I don't want to be a part of that.
I mean, I must just tell you this. My mum got swiped on Tinder by Steven Tyler, and they spoke for a few weeks.
Oh, hang on, sorry. Let me just... I don't want to miss a thing. Steven Tyler is the lead singer of Aerosmith, and that's a song by Aerosmith.
But, well, that was really the story. But yes, and I remember her, bless her, being very excited. She said, oh, Jen, you never guess who swiped for me on Tinder? It was Steven Tyler. And he called her a queen, his queen, and all sorts of stuff. And then...
I didn't know he'd moved to Cheshire either.
This is it. He lives in Cheshire now, where my mum lives. Yeah. And she was getting very, very excited about the fact that it was him. And then at some point the penny dropped because she went, do you know, I don't know if it's him. I thought, no, it probably isn't him.
Bless.
But maybe it was him.
Well, I can name this celebrity because I remember thinking, like, oh, it's a shame we didn't manage to get her. But somebody was being interviewed recently who is a huge Hollywood celebrity, and that's Sharon Stone. And she was on dating apps. She actually got banned from Bumble or one of them because they didn't believe it was her.
Oh, dear.
And she was saying in this interview that, you know, on the podcast that I heard her being interviewed, and she was saying, but it was me. And I just wanted to meet some normal people and all that. So there would have been people, I guess, until she got banned, that would have been like, oh, well, that's obviously not the real her. Or some guy matched her and his kids said,
yeah,
well, that ain't much. Oh, Dad, you don't understand. There's no way that's the real one. And it was the real one.
Oh, God, Steven Tyler could be my stepdad.
Yeah. Could have been. Going back to what we were saying before, so I was saying that I extended my age range. That's my excuse for matching with somebody who is, and yes, this is episode 20, somebody who is 20 years younger than me. Although you wouldn't know it. She's very mature and I'm very immature. More on that in a minute. But yes, that's what happened. And I guess what I'm trying to do here is make excuses for the fact that I ended up dating and now am with somebody that I met through this process. I did start out professionally, but the truth is that I probably started out more professionally with Jen than I did with others. And that's because I remember thinking she's beautiful and she will just be here because she wants to be interviewed. So I tried not to focus on that. And then when she messaged me back, I did get excited, but again, I thought, just focus, just be professional.
Well, you know, I'm really glad that you were in some ways. And actually, interestingly, after we'd first met in person and I knew how much I liked you, or more importantly, actually, that it worked in person, because I knew immediately that I, you know, was so enamoured by you over the phone. But then when we met, it was just as good, if not better. And I remembered after that first physical meeting of thinking, right, Jen, just calm down, because, you know, you can't trust anybody these days, you know, especially that you meet online. And I thought, could I be one of a few? You just don't know. But I would try and calm myself and remind myself and reassure myself that, well, he was always very professional when you first spoke. And almost in many ways, I felt that I was, leading you on is probably the wrong phrase, but I felt that it was all kind of driven by me initially. And that really reassured me, because I thought if he was like that, then I would have sensed that from the start. So that really kind of helped grow my trust and think, no, he's a good man, and, you know, there's something in this.
Yeah, I could definitely sense something different. But the conversation between us, I think something was very different, because the way that I would handle most of the other interactions was just very quickly to say, this is the process. Are you interested? And then immediately put them in touch with Joanna, and Joanna would then run them through. And she was really great at that. She would run them through what we would do and what would work for them to make them the most comfortable. But then also, like, you know, are you happy to sign this release form and do this and do that, you know, and then work out a convenient time. And then she put together a kind of a spreadsheet on there where, you know, we started to figure out when we were going to talk to all these women and do all of that. So, but we never got to point B with you. I never gave Joanna your details, and I never gave you hers. God, yeah, it's very unprofessional.
And what was, of course, for me, the real highlight of that weekend that we spent together in my apartment was the fact that Tom was there.
I needed my wingman.
And then Craig's dad so kindly asked me out for you, and the rest is history.
I'd just like to say that I'm going to take a few weeks off now. We're going to call this the end of season 1. We'll be doing some more interviews very soon, and we will be back. So yes, please do stay in touch with the show. There is a link in the show notes to text us, or you can email us, and there is a link to that in the show notes too. The email address, as always, is playingwithmatchespodcast@gmail.com. So, how was it for you, Jen?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I've really enjoyed today's episode. Thank you again for having me along.
Thank you. And I have to say, I think you are a real natural at this. I've seen you do some TV stuff as well as, and some presenting and stuff. I really do think you're a natural at this. We'll be taking just a few weeks off now while we sort of gather our thoughts and collect enough interviews and bits and pieces for season 2. Okay, so thank you so very much, Jen, for being on this. It really is wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you all out there for listening, especially those that have been listening since the beginning. We will be back, though, in a few weeks. And so, until then, good luck out there.
And on.
Thank you, Jen. Bye-bye.
Bye.